I'm sure you've heard the politically naive among us who've lost a friend or a family member in the occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan, or know someone who has, expressing great anguish about it, and despite that, supporting their inherently counterproductive missions because they don't want any of my brothers and sisters who have died in vain. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you in response to them that fact which they cannot bear to face, which is that they already have died in vain. The economic terrorist organizations of Wall Street and K Street in proxy have done to Iraq and Afghanistan what equates to beginning a marriage with a rape. They have no souls because they've literally sold them to those who are willing to build their lives on the shattered dreams of other human beings. And while the 6-year so-called anniversary of the Iraq War crime has come and gone, with now over 4,900 service persons' lives sacrificed in Iraq and Afghanistan, and many-fold more left emotionless, limbless, and mentally broken for life. While we recognize and cringe at all this, we shall also recognize that we must strive to get to the bottom of our problems and progressively eliminate the root causes. A component at the heart of many of our problems is the manipulation of human emotion. When we let negative feelings get the best of us, we are forced into a narrow choice of either fighting or fleeing. Both choices rob us of our opportunities to make social progress. On the other hand, acts of cooperation and generosity trigger the brain's pleasure center and bring out the most compassionate traits in us. If our brains were not wired for life and community, our species would have expired long ago. Yet within every authoritarian institution, the most intense of our feelings have been taken advantage of. Taken advantage of by those who think that violence and retaliation somehow solve problems when, regardless of the level of magnitude, they've actually been proven time and time again to plant the seeds for new problems and murder innocent people in the process. These same damaged people utilize and even trigger our justified fears of violence and our unjustified fears of those about other cultures, deceiving us into focusing on our differences instead of on our common ground. All for the malicious cause of retaining, expanding, and concentrating power for a fraudulent fraternity of white-collar criminals. Individualistic violence, greed, destruction, and the disregard of others are all within our means, but they are just pathologies. They are not our inherent nature. It is our true nature to love, to cooperate, and to create. Our civilization has always proven that we will evolve toward a better world so long as we reorient ourselves and others from the shock of our current disasters by using the power of conversation that each one of us has and tell our true stories of what's happened to us and why, of reorientation away from ourselves and toward our community, and of the moral imperative of justice, social justice for all. Justice, by definition, is the just behavior and treatment of citizens as determined by society. And that will only happen when society has genuine accountability of its own justice system. Public policing of our justice system comes from those of us who've developed the quality of being fair and reasonable and who are willing to impose the same on our government. The more evident this quality is in our society, the more secure, the more peaceful, the more free we all will be. Only when we have justice will we have peace. Unreasonable people attempt to adapt the world to themselves, while reasonable people adapt themselves to the world. So in going back to my point that our most intense feelings have been taken advantage of, specifically fear, realize the essence of my point here is that the enemies of peace and justice use their intelligence to keep us fearful because they fear the potential of our intelligence. The only weapons they have are to feed us their wedge issue bait and tempt us to focus on the surface of our problems instead of on their root causes. And those root causes are the very foundation of free market corporate culture. They use their weapons of mass distraction in an attempt to marginalize progressive and socially conscious public. But the more we exercise our intelligence and our birthright of questioning authority and holding it fully accountable, the less power the corporatist Republicans and Democrats in Congress have to advance their remarkably similar K Street and Wall Street agendas, which run directly against our common dreams in every way that you could imagine. And in order for our common dreams to come true, we must involve our own communities through the power of conversation, which every one of us has. Modern-day robber barons, now known as free market capitalists, have controlled the justice system, government, most of the media, and most destructively, our culture. They attempt to get us to think that violence is a necessary evil and that profits matter more than people, when the opposite is the obvious. But at the core of what these economic terrorists don't want you to know is that their corporate, corrupt infrastructure of phantom wealth and the corporate culture that it depends on will collapse like a house of cards when we in our communities realize the truth of our relationship to nature and the truth of our personal power. We must evolve our communities through the power of conversation that each one of us has. While the corporate culture drills into us that we are somehow powerless and weak, that our society is somehow evil and fragmented, it's all a big fat lie. We are powerful, beautiful, extraordinary. There is no reason why we cannot understand who we truly are, where we are going, and where we should go. There is no reason why any of us cannot be fully empowered. We are incredibly powerful beings, and we must use our power to evolve our communities through the power of conversation that each one of us has. Imagine how different our societies would be if we redesigned our economic cultures and institutions based on what we know in our hearts to be true rather than based on illusions of the public culture. To turn the human course, we need only to break the silence, make our private beliefs public, and thereby change the public story. We must understand as human beings that our religions, races, classes, nationalities, and even fear, greed, and arrogance itself are learned associations. They are no more a part of you than the clothes you have on, and you are free to take them off at any time and discover who and what you really are. We believe that the world is one organism. When at war with herself is doomed, and when in love with herself is destined for sustainable progress. So in closing, allow me to speak for all of us when I say this. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Thank you so much.